That sound again, inhaling through his nose. He spoke. "You shouldn't talk to grown-ups like that, young lady." Lisa snorted. "First you go skulking around pretending to be Spanish, now you're pretending to be a gentleman? Stupid." Her voice was still trembling. I was sure her whole body was shaking like a leaf. But she was facing him, conquering her fear. All I was doing was trembling. Nothing else. I was letting her do everything. "Shut that filthy little mouth! I'm going to empty out your guts next!" the man screamed. Footsteps coming down the ceiling. Lisa took a quick deep breath and started running. No, it was my turn. I ran after her. Wait, don't be stupid, Tsuku called after me, but I didn't stop. I raced down the hall, chasing after Lisa. Her back looked so small, her shoulders so frail, I had to get in front of her. The young man on the ceiling definitely looked just like Antonio Torres, but there were long pointy teeth sticking out of his open mouth, threatening Lisa. "I'm gonna eat you right up, little girl." Laughing wildly, his feet left the ceiling. He spun in midair, lunging towards Lisa. "I am Jorge Joestar's guardian. I fight to protect his beautiful bloodline. Breathe, Lisa! Indigo Blue Overdrive!" Her voice started as a whisper and ended as a shout, her fist swinging forward. Just as I passed her, and empty-handed and without plan, yelled, "Hey! Don't ever hit a girl!" and put myself between Lisa and that horrible man. My sudden appearance caught Lisa off guard. Our eyes met for a second, but her fist didn't stop. Her lips parted to say something, and her fist hit the floor just as the man with fangs landed and looked at me. A ripple ran across the floor, a circle filled with some complicated pattern. When it hit the sinister young man, it knocked him back, and he instantly crumbled, like sand or ash. "Oh! Wow, Lisa!" I yelled. "You idiot!" she shrieked, still surprised. A second later my back hit the floor, and a shock ran from my head down to my toes like I'd just been struck by lightning. I passed out. When I woke up, it was the next morning, and everything was over. Straits was standing by my bed, and explained that the remains of Antonio and Alejandro Torres had been cleaned up, that everyone had spent a terrifying night hiding in their homes while Straits and his friends went around the island killing monsters like Alejandro, and that they were confident the island was safe and La Palma could return to normal as soon as the sun rose. "And Lisa?" I asked. "She was out all night working with us. She's exhausted and fast asleep." "Is she mad at me? I messed up again and got in her way." "George, the Joestars have never hesitated to put themselves in danger, and you are no different. But you're still very young. Not everything you attempt will succeed. Grow up to be a fine young man, true of heart and strong in spirit." "Do I have a power like Lisa's?" "Do you want it?" I shuddered at the very thought. "Antonio's father had fangs, and was too young, and he could walk on the ceiling. He said he ate Antonio." "Yes." You fight monsters like that, Straits?" "We do. And we train hard so we can have the power we need to fight them." "I'm scared. I never want to see anything like that again. If I ever did, I'm sure I couldn't move a muscle. My legs would freeze and he'd eat me alive. I don't want that. I'm scared of that happening. I don't want to go anywhere near anyone like that again. I don't want power like Lisa's." As I said this, I felt so pathetic I started crying. At the time the fear had left me, but it all came flooding back. A heavy sort of fear that made it hard to breathe. I was panting through my sobs. I was mad at myself for crying in front of Straits, but at the same time I thought, look how pathetic I am. How can anyone ask me to fight? Lisa's much more brave. Let her handle it. I was awful, and that just made me cry harder. "But you did move, didn't you?" Straits said, patting me on the back. I didn't say anything. What I'd done was just dumb. I was embarrassed. Straits and company decided to stay in La Palma until it was time to take Lisa with them to Italy. They said they'd started her training in earnest while chasing the monsters. I didn't want to hear about it, so I didn't ask. I couldn't meet Lisa's eye, and she spoke to me less and less, and the mood in the house got so grim I was almost looking forward to her leaving. While I was still at home recuperating, Tsuku came to visit. When I asked how things were at school, I heard I was hardly the only one absent due to shock. Giulio, on the other hand, had come every day, and had largely taken over Antonio's role. He'd made it sound like he had no plans to continue persecuting me, though. Elizabeth mentioned it in passing, but apparently the Torres family were actually English. I looked into it. Their real name was Hightower. Antonio was born Anthony, and Alejandro was actually Alexander. They simply changed their names to seem more Spanish. They'd been in the railroad business in England, gone bankrupt and rushed up here, and with that history in mind, he may have targeted you. I had no response to that. It was all over. The Torres family had come to the Canary Islands broken and had met their fates. La Palma was a bright, happy place. I still found it hard to believe such darkness had lain hidden in the shadows, or that Alejandro had really walked on the ceiling, Fang's bed. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "Coming to visit." Tsuku made a face. "Yeah, well, when it all went down, I couldn't do anything." "Ha, so? I don't care about that. I've never really had a friend. Nobody's ever come over to play." "Oh. Sorry. It's not your fault. But truth is, I think I've treated you rather coldly." "You did? I never really noticed. Why? Because I'm English?" I braced myself, expecting to be told he just didn't like me. But what he actually said made no sense. "Because I was a detective." "Was? I don't really get it, but aren't you still?" "Maybe. But I'm no longer sure. And you can't call yourself a detective if you aren't sure." "Huh." "Not a care in the world, have you, Jorge Joestar? But don't think you'll be able to lay back and let things wash over you forever. The time is drawing near. Let us talk about certainty. I call myself a detective, and I perform the role well. I have my failures and make mistakes, but I remain calm. Why? Because I am certain that I am a detective and will solve the case. That is why I never hesitated to call myself a detective. You understand? In my mind, the word detective is an honor, one others use to describe you, not something you ordinarily use to describe yourself. Artists don't normally call themselves masters or geniuses. They don't describe their own work as masterpieces. Describing yourself as a detective is normally just as comical. I guess, but it didn't strike me as strange when you called yourself a detective. That's what's weird. Why do we feel like I won't get it totally wrong? You, others, even me. The cases a detective gets mixed up in are always extremely complicated and filled with surprises. The criminals always use elaborate tricks, and there's always at least one last-minute plot twist. It should be completely impossible to reach the truth without any mistakes. Maybe once. But every time? But you said you made mistakes. Yes, but in the end I always find the truth and solve the case. Isn't that good? But isn't it also weird? Are you under a lot of pressure? You mean everyone expects you to succeed and that's getting you down? Not once. I've never felt so pressured. I always find the truth. So what's the problem? That's my point. There is no problem. And that's the problem. I'm just an ordinary boy. Guaranteed success should be completely impossible. So even though you always succeed, you think it's weird that you do? Exactly, Tsuku said, very earnest. Human beings not generally have such clearly defined roles. So you think you lack modesty? No. I think I have no need for modesty. I'm confident that lack of modesty will never be a problem for me. So everything always goes your way and you know it will? Yes, I think we're getting somewhere, Tsuku said, watching me intently. My certainty comes from that. I don't believe the world was made for me. I know it was. I'm not talking about the small boost of confidence that comes when things are going well for you. I mean I was chosen by the god of this world. And I know I was. That's why I can call myself a detective without a trace of shame and have that cause no problems at all. Well, you've been very lucky, but I don't see that this is a bad thing. We're drifting away from the point again. So let me say this, Jorge Joestar. I've been playing the role of the detective all this time, and I know exactly how it feels. Something like this cannot occur without the arbitrary will of a god. I have something watching over me. Something like a god, yet not God. People do say God's with us. Gods do not care about the individual. They don't play favourites. Even if they do give someone a role to play, they will not manipulate matters to the point of disrupting their natural order. What I have has the power of a god, but one that works only for me. Let me say exactly what I mean. Say that I'm Sherlock Holmes. That I'm certain I have something outside of this world surfing as my Arthur Conan Doyle. I am as certain of this as I am certain I am a detective. And I have a name for this thing guiding me from somewhere not of this world. I call it Beyond. He was delusional, I thought. He was too smart and too successful, and got carried away, or genuinely sick in the head. All his natural modesty had been repressed and twisted until he had to believe in this guardian. Tsuku wasn't done spouting nonsense. But here I am speaking in the present tense, when really this is all in the past. Like I said at the start, I no longer have the certainty required to call myself a detective. My Beyond has abandoned me. I'm still me, but my role in this world is no longer guaranteed by Beyond. Beyond has chosen a new protagonist for this world, for this story. You, Jorge Joestar. This is the last thing I'm certain of. Huh? What in the... And the only reason I need to be sure it's you is that I'm jealous of you. I would never have imagined that it could be this terrifying to have the reason for your existence snatched away. I've never had thoughts like these before. It really drives home just how much I took for granted my position and the peace of mind it brought. Sure, I had my rough patches and things happened that were sad or painful, but as long as I fulfilled my role, I was satisfied. And a life filled with satisfaction is something to be grateful for. I know that much. Even at 11. And because I'm 11, I'm a little jealous you've stolen my position. I'm just a kid after all. I was pretty sure I wasn't to blame for whatever he was accusing me of, but beyond that it made no sense. So does this mean I have to become Sherlock Holmes and act like a detective instead of you? I asked. He blinked at me. No, I doubt it. Your story already has monsters and mystic powers in it, so I doubt you'll end up being a detective. I think you'll play the character of Jorge Joestar in a story called Jorge Joestar. A little bit on the nose there, Mr. Orphan Man. Sure, normal then. I plan on doing that anyway. Tsuku gave me a very serious look. That'll never happen. With Beyond at your side, your adventure will be without compare. Let me give you one piece of advice. You should believe. Remember that. Believe in Beyond, and you will overcome your fate. He made it sound prophetic, but I couldn't take it seriously. But I did become friends with Tsuku. Pretty much by the end of that day, we'd become best friends, like I'd always dreamed of having. We talked about everything. My stories were always pathetic, but the tales Tsuku told of his adventures were highly entertaining. He was Japanese, and his name could be written in kanji. The kanji used were those numbers 910, 910, and 9. Even in Japan, nobody else had a name like that. He'd been born in Fuku Prefecture, in a small town called Nishiakatsuki. When he was 3, his archaeologist father took him to Africa, and when he was 5, he came to the Canary Islands with his mother. When he was 6, he began working as a detective, not just in the Canary Islands, but on the Spanish mainland too. He'd even been called away to Egypt to solve a mystery. The cases he'd solved were as bizarre as he'd promised, and after solving so many incredibly complicated cases, I could see why he'd start to wonder if some kind of god was on his side. I never did go back to school. Instead, I spent all my time playing with Tsuku. It was almost time for Lisa to leave, but I was so busy enjoying friendship I'd barely spoken to her in weeks. I'd expected to be sad, but it was starting to look like a tearless farewell. Straits and his mysterious companions came over for dinner and ate and drank a lot. Mum cried, and Lisa seemed to be as emotionally uninvested as I was. She just told everyone, "I will follow my destiny." I didn't really try to talk to me at all. I wasn't happy to have to go, but I had a new friend, and Antonio Torres was no longer around to torment me, so I was no longer that worried about the future, and I figured Lisa was glad she didn't have to protect me all the time now. I didn't tell her that, though. What I did say was this. After the big noisy dinner, after the others had taken their drinks to the cigar room or the terrace, I heard a voice call my name, and turned to see Lisa standing there in her green dress. "Hey," I said, and then didn't know what else to say. I knew there was a lot I should say, but none of it seemed right. Since I was a little girl, I've always wondered why I wasn't a Joestar, Lisa said. I wished I could have been. Then Mama Erina would be my mum, and you'd be my little brother, and I'd be your big sister. But as I grew older, I started to think maybe it was better this way. Why? Would I have made things harder for you if you were my sister? She laughed. I hadn't seen her smile in a long time. Don't be stupid, George. No, what do you think, George? Would you want me to be your sister? I can't even imagine it. I don't know what to think. You'll always be Lisa to me. This was true. The idea has certainly crossed my mind, but I just couldn't imagine a world where she was really related to me. And it had never occurred to me to wonder if it was a good thing that she wasn't. Good, Lisa said, smiling. What? Well, if we were brother and sister, we couldn't get married. Huh? I don't really get love or any of that stuff yet, but I'm glad I could marry you. Married? To Lisa? I can't imagine that, I blurted out. That wasn't something to admit to any girl, least of all Lisa. You're so rude, she said, laughing. I love you, Lisa, I said quickly. I had no idea why I said that. Me too, George. I love you too. What were we talking about? We went to bed, and when we woke up in the morning and went to see her off, she just waved at me, and I can't remember if she said anything else. Mum and I went back to the house alone, and I went out to play with Tsuku. In the New Year, Tsuku and I both turned 12. Being with him, we often encountered mysteries, and just in the Canary Islands I got mixed up in no less than 3 serial killer cases. But obviously I can't show you that, otherwise this book would be even longer, and it's already 666 pages, so God fucking forbid we have that shit. What the heck? I can still do this detective thing just fine, Tsuku said, scratching his head. But he was really, really smart, and I couldn't even manage to be as useful as Watson. When we were 13, we solved 15 locked room mysteries, and when we were 14, we captured 2 serial killers, and when we were 15, we discovered the 15 locked room mysteries from 2 years ago before were actually the work of a single criminal and captured the real killer, mostly Tsuku. Again, I couldn't put any of that in because this book is fucking long and it's going to take me forever to read. I thought we would spend high school in the same way, but shortly after capturing the killer behind the 15 locked room mysteries, Tsuku had to go back to Japan and I cried a lot. I really didn't know how I could go on alone. That's where beyond comes in, he said, standing on the docks. I hadn't heard that word in a while. This isn't funny, I said, but I knew he never joked. I'm serious. Do you remember what I said the first time we talked? The thing I told you to remember? Believe in beyond and you will overcome your fate. I did, but I wanted to focus on how unhappy I was to be saying goodbye to my first and only friend. I didn't want to talk about that crap at all. There was no point in talking crap about how I was the protagonist of my own life here. I just really didn't want to say goodbye to this handsome detective who'd solved so many mysteries with me at his side. I'll come to Japan someday. I'll come find you, even on the other side of the world, and we'll solve more cases together. Or he'd solve them, at any rate. I kind of get the feeling that won't happen, Tsuku said, laughing. I couldn't believe it. He had no tact at all. No, I'm coming, I insisted. If beyond wills it, he said, gave me a Japanese dictionary, got on a ship, and sailed away. 3 days later, the boat carrying Tsukumojuku vanished off the coast of Florida. 5 days later, news of this reached the Canary Islands. I prayed every night for 2 months, but when the army found the boat at the bottom of the sea, I had to settle for feeling deeply betrayed. I cursed God and cried. I don't know what plan you had, but the price for stealing my friend was very, very high. He was my first and only friend. He was amazing. He should have been the main character. End of chapter 1.